I review movies, but sometimes it's more of an experience review than an actual movie review. I can tell you what I think, and I will, of the movie Magic Mike, but I'd like to share with you my experience, because going to this movie was an experience. First of all, I thought I would, I go in late to movies. I don't like to watch all the previews. I try to stay as fresh as possible while seeing movies. I'm going to see them anyway, so it's not like I need to see the previews. And so I try to sneak in after previews, and so I think, I'll sneak into Magic Mike afterwards. I'll just kind of slip into a seat. Nobody will know, I'm there, whatever the case may be. Not that I'm trying to hide it necessarily. It's just a weird movie to go see as a single dude. I'm just saying. So I look around the corner, and the theater is packed. An afternoon weekday screening is packed. And I am literally the only male in the room. I promise you. Cougars galore filling this place, and in order to get to an empty seat I have to walk in front of all of them, and I can just feel them looking at me, get to my seat, get down, sit down, ready to watch Magic Mike. And what happened next I was not ready for. It was a hootin' and hollerin' and talking to the screen. What is going on? Is this how women get together and watch movies? I guess especially about strippers, which I guess I should mention the story. Magic Mike follows the story of a stripper and how he finds a real life outside of the fantasy life that he presents on the stage, and that's the basics. It's directed by Steven Soderbergh, I think, and Soderbergh actually has a real track record of taking kind of real people in real situations and making them feel organic on the screen, and I think he was trying to do that with this movie as well. And I'll get there to actually what I think about the movie, but I have to finish by saying these women were screaming, they were whistling at the scenes. I cannot imagine the role reversal of a theater full of guys being this exuberant about what was happening on the screen. And it's directly related in the movie itself as these strip scenes are happening. The ladies in the strip club are acting this way too. Apparently this is how women act when men take off their clothes on stage. I'm just telling you from my personal experience. And I think there's an interesting innocence that our culture gives to women viewing this versus men viewing this kind of content, and it's an interesting thing. There's actually a speech in the movie that I really love from Matthew McConaughey. I should mention Channing Tatum stars in this movie. Matthew McConaughey's in it as well as some other names you might know. But McConaughey gives this speech about how women go to a strip club to have a story told to them, that they can immerse themselves in this fantasy world that isn't their real world, and then go back to their real world and not have done anything wrong. That's his kind of moral speech on what they do. And I kind of saw that with the women here in this theater, and they wanted to hear the story. Now with men, when men go to a strip club, it has nothing to do with the story, it just has to do with the visuals. And yet for women, it has to be a fireman or Tarzan or, all these different costumes and storylines. And what's interesting about that, and now we get into the movie itself, is Soderbergh draws an interesting juxtaposition, at least what I saw in the movie. Not sure what everybody else was seeing. No, actually I am sure of what they were seeing. He draws an interesting kind of parallel between that fantasy world and what happens in the real world. And Channing Tatum's character in this is kind of living that pressure of, okay, this is this fantasy guy I can portray on screen, but here's the real world where I find a real girl, and what does that mean, and what is our story, and it's nothing like when I dress up like a fireman or a breakdancer or, do my routines on stage. So there's this really interesting commentary, I think, happening in this movie, but I'll tell you something, I don't think anybody was paying attention to that. No, they were paying attention to the men in the G-strings and the fantasy scenes on the screen, at least from their hooting and hollering. I'm pretty sure they were paying attention to this. I do need to say one more thing that I'm sure will catch me flack. Channing Tatum can dance. That dude, I had no clue. I guess he was a stripper before he was an actor, but he actually has moves. And I don't mean in a stripping kind of way. I mean like in a dancing kind of way. Some of the moves he pulls off, some of the breakdancing moves he pulls off in this movie, unless it was a double, which I don't think it was, are really impressive. Is Magic Mike worth seeing? I don't think so. In fact, I think the message of this movie, which is kind of interesting and compelling, gets lost in the presentation of this movie, which falls into the same trap that the message seems to be fighting against. Overall, if you are going to see this movie, I would recommend not trying to sneak in afterwards and to possibly just be ready for a lot of commentary.